أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه تبارك وتعالى في محكم كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا وكنتم على شفا حفرة من النار فأنقذكم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات على محمد وآله. In these few nights of the holy month of Ramadan, we are trying to understand ourselves better. And for the first 3 nights, we spoke of freedom in order to see if we are indeed truly free or not. Now, we look at another aspect of human beings, because when human beings come into this world, one thing that they realize is that they are not alone. And according to the nature of human beings cannot live alone. If a human being, if a man were to stay on his own, away from the society and away from other human beings, as we have certain individuals, they call themselves hermits. A hermit is a person who stays away from the society. These kind of individuals are deemed mentally unstable individuals, and people are afraid of them. From the very young age, when in kindergarten a teacher wants to punish a young child for doing something wrong, they tell that boy or that girl to go to a corner and face the wall, thereby secluding the child from the rest of the class, and that is sufficient as a punishment for the child. We spoke about prisoners. One of the worst forms of torture is isolating an individual. So you find that in certain prisons they have what is known as solitary confinement, where an individual is kept on his own, and that in itself is a great torture for that person. All this points to one fact, and that is that a human being is a social creature. A human being can only survive in the presence of other human beings. A human being cannot live on his own. We need to be part of a community, to be part of a society. The verse that I have recited from Surah Al Imran, verse number 103, which we have heard numerous times, in which Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. O human beings, hold on fast to the rope of Allah and do not be divided. This is a verse of the Quran that speaks to the nature of human beings. It speaks to the fitrah of human beings. Because if we are to live in a society, we have to live in harmony with other human beings. And every human being is a unique individual. You will never find two human beings who are the same. Never. Physically, we are unique. Psychologically, we are unique. Physically, we all know we have different DNA. That is how they catch criminals these days. They test the DNA and they come to know who has committed the crime, because our DNA is unique. But psychologically also, we are unique individuals. And that is why when we try and compare and judge individuals based on our understanding, we try and compare Mr. X with Mr. Y and say that, but Mr. Y is better and Mr. X is better. We fail to realize that they are different. How can you be fair in your judgment when they are completely different individuals? Even identical twins are different. An interesting research paper has been written in Pakistan by two students, one by the name of Kanize Fatima and the other Salma Hussein. This paper is available on the internet. The differences between fraternal twins and identical twins in Pakistan. A very interesting paper in which they show that even identical twins are different. And therefore, when you are living in a society with so many different individuals, everyone unique, then to live in unity and in harmony becomes a challenge. And that is why we find that all the different traditions, all the different faiths preach unity. There was a king, a wise king, who had 12 sons. When he was about to die, these 12 sons were going to inherit his kingdom. So he made them stand in front of him and he gave them each a stick. And then he told them to break the stick. And they all broke the stick. And then he gave them each 12 sticks put together. And he told them to break these 12 sticks, and none of them could break the 12 sticks. And then he said, when I die, be united like these 12 sticks so that nobody can break you. In the Mahabharata, there is a story where a person wants to catch birds, so he throws his net. When he throws his net and he leaves his net outside, one bird comes, gets caught in the net. So he says one bird is not enough. He waits, another bird comes, gets caught in the net, a third, a fourth, a fifth. The man is so happy. But then so many birds get caught in the net that they fly away with his net. And under that story in the Mahabharata, it says unity is strength. And so we find that this idea of unity is not something that is preached only in Islam. It is part of the human condition. We have to understand that unity is very, very important. When we look at the ahadith of our Aimma alayhimus salam, we find beautiful ahadith regarding unity. We are told مثل المؤمنين في توادهم وتراحمهم كجسد واحد. The example of believers in the way that they deal with one another, in the way that they love one another and they support one another and they have mercy for one another is like that of a body. We are one body. If part of the body falls ill, then the other part of the body also suffers. In another hadith we are told, Al-mu'minu lil-mu'mini kabunyan yashuddu ba'duhu ba'da. A believer, his relation to another believer is like that of a building. They support one another. They support one another. However, unfortunately, human beings are competitive creatures. Human beings like to compete with one another and outdo one another. In Surah Al-Hadid, in verse number 20, Allah Azza wa Jal says, "I'lamu annama al-hayatu ad-dunya la'ibun wa lahwun wa zinah wa tafakhurun baynakum wa takathurun fil amwali wal awlad." These two phrases are what show us the competitive nature of human beings. wa tafakhurun baynakum. Human beings, they want to outdo one another. وَتَكَاثُرٌ فِي الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ. Who has more money? Who has more children? Who has a bigger family? And therefore, because of this, we, unfortunately, if we do not keep this competitive nature in check, we become like crabs. A man goes to the fish market and he sees a person selling crabs. He has a large pot with so many crabs inside, but there is no lid on that pot. So he tells him, "Why aren't you covering your pot? Won't your crabs run away?" He says, "No. Whenever one crab tries to climb out of the pot, the other crabs pull him back in." This is the nature of crabs. And if we do not keep our competitive nature in check, then we will also become like the crabs. Now, when we talk about unity, we can classify unity with different classifications. Different scholars have come up with different types of classifications. Some have said interfaith unity versus intra-faith unity, for example. Some have said internal unity, external unity. I want to come up with a broader kind of classification for unity. We can say unity is divided into selfish unity and selfless unity. Selfish unity is where a person joins a group, joins a committee for selfish reasons. Either because they want to gain something materially, or because they want their name to be published. They are part of that group, but for selfish reasons. Selfless unity is where a person does his work and joins a group for no other reason but to serve others. Another classification that we can come up with is unity for good and unity for evil. Unity for evil, the example we can give, which we all know about, is the example from the life of our Holy Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. That when the people The mushrikeen of Quraysh had tried everything and had failed. They had tried to bribe the Prophet, and the Prophet replied, if you were to put the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left, I will still not leave this mission. And they had lost all hope. Even after persecuting the believers, they found that Islam is still strong and spreading. They decided that we have to kill this man. We have to assassinate the Prophet. And because they were afraid that if any one individual were to do this, then that would bring very severe repercussions against the tribe of that individual. So they came together and they joined hands in unity so that they can perform this evil action. One from each tribe. And they all stood ready outside the house of the Prophet, seeing the Prophet sleeping in his bed. But that was not the Prophet. That was Imam Ali alayhi salam. And it is surprising for those people who don't like the fadail of Imam Ali alayhi salam, the nawasib. They change so many stories in history. Who gave the ring? They give you someone else's name in ruku'. Who fasted for 3 days and then gave their iftar to the yatim and the asir and the miskin? They give you other people's names. But they cannot tolerate the fadail of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. But I challenge any one of you to bring any Sunni source or Shia source that says that the man who slept in the bed of Rasulullah on Laylatul Mabit was anyone other than Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi. Even they have no way out but to acknowledge. And Imam Ali alayhi salam is sleeping on that bed. And he wakes up and he says, I have never slept such a sleep in my life. And the riwayat tell us that when he is asleep, the angels are amazed in the heavens. The angels are surprised. How can this be? A human being in this situation ought to be trembling, ought to be fearing anytime the swords are outside ready. But Imam Ali alayhi salam is having his deep sleep on that night. So the unity at that time was the unity for evil, coming together to do something evil. Another example from the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, his brothers united against him. If you look at Surah Yusuf alayhi salam, it is very clear. In ayah number 15, Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَأَجْمَعُوا أَن يَجْعَلُوهُ فِي غَيَابَةِ الْجُبِّ وَأَجْمَعُوا. They united. They came together to do what? To put Yusuf alayhi salam in the well. That is an example also of unity for evil. What about unity for good? At the time when our beloved Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi was a young man in his 20s, Mecca was a capital for trade. People would come from all over the place with their goods to buy and sell. A man comes from the tribe of Banu Zubayd and he brings his wares to Mecca. And he sells his goods to another man who was an inhabitant of Mecca by the name of As bin Wa'il. But As bin Wa'il does not pay him. So the man tries, he goes to the other merchants, he goes to the leaders of Mecca, he goes everywhere, but to no avail. Finally, he goes and stands atop the mount of Abu Qubais and he starts shouting, "O people of Mecca, is this how you treat your guests? We come with our goods and you steal them from us. Is there no justice in Mecca? Is there no one who comes to help those in need?" When the Holy Prophet heard this, and the young people of Mecca heard this, they decided that they will do something about it. And they formed a league of justice, known as the Hilful Fudul. And they decided that henceforth, if anybody comes to Mecca and anybody needs assistance because he has been swindled or cheated, we will stand up and ensure that he gets paid. This is an example of unity for good. So when we look at unity, these are the different classifications that come to mind, and we need to keep this as our basis when we classify unity, because unity is good as long as it is for good. Now, when we live in a society, the smallest unit in a society is the family unit. So the first place where we should ensure unity is inside our own families. Yet unfortunately, we find that this is the place where unity is lacking. Unity between parents and children, it's lacking. Why? When parents spend their entire day in the offices and in the workplaces and they do not give time to their children. We are too busy making money to take care of our children, then that unity between the parents and the children slowly dissipates. Unity between husband and wife, a big problem these days. Where is the ethos that has been taught to us in Surah Ar-Rum, verse number 21? وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. Where did this go? One of the mullahs one day, he was sitting in a gathering and he asked the people of the gathering, all those of you who are displeased with your wives, stand up. And everybody stood up except one man. So everyone turned to look at that one man. And that mullah also was looking at him and saying, "You must be very lucky, you are not displeased with your wife." He says, "No, my wife has hit me so much that she broke my leg, so I cannot stand up." Is this the state of affairs between husband and wife? Look at the relationship between siblings, brothers, sisters. They don't get along in so many families. How unfortunate it is. And for petty reasons. Very, very petty squabbles. There were two brothers in the past who were both viziers of one of the kings. One was known as Nuruddin, the other was known as Shamsuddin. Both of them were viziers for one king. One day, they were seated together And they were talking to one another. And they said, Insha'Allah, I will get a daughter and you get a son. And then my daughter will marry your son. They said, yes, it's a very good idea. But what is the mahar that you will ask for? So that one says, I will ask for mahar of 3,000 houses and 3,000 gold coins and a large mahar. So they started debating about it and they quarreled about it. They quarreled about a mahar of two individuals who haven't even been born yet. And then they quarreled to such a degree that in the end, they went their separate ways and they had to fight against each other in a war. These are examples from the past, but if you look at our lives today, we have plenty of our own examples. Similar petty squabbles, and brothers will not talk to each other till the day they die. Sisters will not talk to each other till the day they die, for these very, very petty reasons. Islam, being a religion of fitrah, has made so many rules and has kept so many different ways in which individuals increase their unity. We are told how to treat the elders in the community. You see an elderly person, respect that elderly person. You see a young person, respect that young person. When you see the elderly person, think to yourself, this elderly person has done more ibadah than me. Respect him. When you see a young person, think to yourself, this young person has done less sins than me. Respect that young person. When you meet somebody, say Salamun alaykum. The Holy Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi used to always be the first to say salam. Whenever he saw someone, he would be the first person to say Salamun alaykum. Not waiting for someone to tell me salam, then I reply. No. So much so that his companions, one day they said, no, we have to do something. Today, we will make sure that we say salam to the Prophet first. So they said, let's hide behind the wall. And then we'll jump and surprise the Prophet with our salam. And the Prophet was walking, but the moment they came out, he said salam first. Even that did not work. Islam is a religion that wants us to live in harmony with one another. Look at the ibadat. We are told, recite Salatul Jama'ah. You come for Salatul Jama'ah, you forget all your differences. You stand next to the person who is near you, whether he is rich or poor, black or white, tall or short, whatever he is, you pray together in front of the same Lord who created you. What about Hajj? Hajj is an experience that has moved people. If you look at the life of Malcolm X, he will tell you how Hajj changed his life. All these things, zakat, helping one another out, these are all things through which Islam fosters unity in the community. It is so important, so important. And unity is what brings power to the people. A united community is a powerful community. The Holy Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, he says, Inna qaleel al-mu'minin kathirun. Even a small group of believers are actually many. Why? Because of the power that is there in unity. And especially believers, because believers will unite with one another, not for selfish reasons, just to please Allah Azza wa Jalla. So when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, is walking with his companions in the desert, he tells them, I want you to all go and collect firewood. They're saying, Ya Rasulullah, in this desert, how will we find firewood? He said, no, all of you go in different directions. And when they all went and they came back, they collected a large heap of firewood. And through this, the Prophet taught them the importance of unity. And that is why in the Holy Quran, when Allah Azza wa Jal issues a challenge, He uses unity in that challenge. He says, قُلْ لَإِنِ اجْتَمَعَتِ الْإِنسُ وَالْجِنُّ عَلَىٰ أَنْ يَأْتُوا بِمِثْلِ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ لَا يَأْتُونَ بِمِثْلِهِ وَلَوْ كَانَ بَعْضُهُمْ لِبَعْضٍ ظَهِيرًا. Tell them, O Prophet, even if humanity were to be united with the jinn, because unity is power, unity is strength, even if they come together, they will not be able to bring the like of this Quran. That means the highest threat that you can make towards this Quran is unity, but still you will not be able to reach this Quran. This shows the power of unity. But why are we disunited? What are the causes of disunity? The causes of disunity are two: internal causes and external causes. The internal causes of disunity are our own internal problems: love for power, love for authority. Where a person thinks nobody can replace them. Where a person feels, I can do a better job, so let me open a similar practice. This is one of the internal problems. Greed is another problem, which we spoke about yesterday. Jealousy. From the time of Adam alayhi salam, if you look at the story of Habil and Qabil, this disunity between brothers was brought about by this internal problem of jealousy. So these are the internal problems, these are the internal factors that bring about disunity. But there are also external factors that bring about disunity amongst the people. What are these external factors? The enemy always wants us to be disunited, because then they can control us and they can conquer us. You divide and conquer. If you look at history, you will see individuals like Lawrence of Arabia, sent specifically for the purpose of bringing about a breakup in the Muslim Ummah, sent to the Arabs, made to learn the customs of the Arabs, the ways of the Arabs, the language of the Arabs, living with the Arabs, and then instigating them against the Uthmaniyin, against the Ottomans. How can you Arabs live under the Ottomans? How can you live under the Turks? And thereby breaking the Muslim Ummah, thereby causing divisions, and that led to the end of the Caliphate. And then when they see divisive figures who cause disunity in the community, they support them with publicity, with wealth. Who is Salman Rushdie? What nonsense did he write? But how come he became so popular? Who is Irshad Manji? What nonsense does she have to say? Any person with a sound mind listens to such individuals, knows that what they are saying is utter rubbish. Yet they are invited to different conferences and they are supported financially. Why? Because these people are those who cause disunity in the community. And the enemy is very much frightened of unity. If you look at history and you see the recent history, where there were conferences a few years ago in Egypt, where Fatah and Hamas came together and they said, now we will be united. The very next day you should see in the newspapers how the Israelis reacted to this, how the Americans reacted to this, how those who are against unity reacted to this. It's clearly there in the news reports. And how many battles in history have been won when the enemy thinks that there is unity amongst the army that is opposing us? Do you know it is a common tactic in war to show the enemy that you are united and that you are large in number, even if you are not so? Where people light many fires so that when the enemy looks from far, they think there are so many, yet they are a few. And just the thought of facing a united army, a strong army, makes one tremble. And therefore you find that the enemy is constantly in fear of unity amongst the Muslims. And that is why these days they have got the answer when it comes to separating the Muslims. They always use divide and conquer. They always use the Shia, the Sunni. All the time in the news, oh, there was a bombing in a Shia area. There was a bombing in a mosque, it was a Sunni mosque. This was not there many years ago, but now they know what strings to pull so that the Muslims start going at each other and they achieve their objectives. So in order to understand the importance of unity, there are two steps. The first is to understand our differences, and the second is to see how we can live with our differences. Insha'Allah, from tomorrow night, we will discuss what our differences are, and the night after that, how we can live with our differences. Let us pray to Allah Azza wa Jal to grant us the ability to remain united and to be a strong, united community. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.